Judy, it is an honor to be able to see you again since we met about
Again.
7 months ago in person. You
Hmm.
came to, I came to Virginia rather, and I was at the GOP office where there was a screening of Affirmation Generation. We talked for a long time after, and I just was like, there was a commonality with you, there was a bonding with you that was almost immediate for me. And I know that you had lost, I mean, you had lost an entire country of people, countrymen and women, in terms of a culture, everything. I mean, there's nothing that compares to that. I lost a lesbian cultural community that started to get lost as early as the late 1980s when it became a fad to have for particularly lesbians to have their breasts removed at the local, UCSF. Only $8,000, and this is
Wow.
pre-internet. And people asking, could you give, can you donate 10, $20, whatever my friend wants to, she wants to get top surgery.
Hmm.
And there were very few of us that were like, this is bad. There's something bad going on. And we
Well,
were the
thank you for that. I
outliers.
did not know that it started that early.
Oh,
Well, thank
yeah.
you for that information. Yeah.
Yes, and before that, and this is what I wanted to lead into your story, before that in the 1970s, late 1970s, when the women's movement had built this whole, and many were because of lesbians, coffee houses, music circuits, poetry readings, bookstores, businesses, things like there was a whole women's movement that had developed these cultural things and even women's health clinics and things like that in the 70s. And these very few men started to kind of infiltrate the cultural sphere. And again, there were only a few of us that were considered outliers and saying, we want to keep this like women only space. It doesn't matter a woman's sexuality. It's like we want to keep this women only space. And again, a few of us that were just like pushed aside. We weren't being kind enough. Things were changing. Everything
Hmm.
became queer. And it's is exactly as you said, that started in the universities. So thank you
Absolutely.
for your book. Thank you for your immediate connecting with me after seeing Affirmation Generation, which which leads me to the first question. Then I'd like you to tell your story. I have a couple of questions for you. How did you how did you feel affected by seeing that movie? Because we focus in that film on the harms of the gender affirmation model. But I think that you saw in the course of the film also, we touch upon the social issues, we touch upon the political things. What struck you? Because after the film, you were very moved, and I wanted to hear more. Now it's been a few months, so please.
Yes. And of course, we're all horrified by the harms that been done to the children that somehow bought into this ideology that they can just change their sex and then do all sorts of harms to their body, and they believed in it. And that's horrifying. That's really, now we know, we started to see people that regret, and
Mhm.
people that go online tell them that they suffer from all this aftermath, especially um, uh, um, for men who transition to women, and their fake vagina just would not heal because the
Mhm.
body treated as a wound, and they're horrifying story, and that's broken. But to me, I think we should go beyond that. We should not stay, and I do think that is an issue that a lot of people just stay in the topic of transgender
Mhm.
and fail to see the bigger picture.
Mhm.
The big picture is
Mhm.
this is not about transgender per se, and it's not about believing the children and confirming they know who they are. It's nothing about those. It's really about a much bigger agenda. And we talk a little bit in your introduction. It is a Marxist ideology taking over our country.
Mhm.
And the fact that we are even talking about this, I just went to school board. I've been going to school board meeting in the past few weeks. And I told them the fact that we're talking about it is a proof that the Marxist, the communist world view has replaced the traditional American world view. So they see through that lens in a totally new light that is Marxist, that is communist, that's familiar to me. In the Cultural Revolution, of course, there's no such thing as transgender. And you know what? There's no need to have such thing as transgender. They already managed to control the mind of the young people, and that's why we had the Cultural Revolution.
Mhm.
But here, they have to be more creative. The Marxist, the new version of the Western Marxist, cultural Marxism is a whole lot more sophisticated and a whole lot more deceptive than Mao's.
Mhm.
And so we have to talk about transgender in a much, much higher level. And just like you said, they hijacked the LB. I think LB is in the very beginning, that their movement. What did they want? They just want equal rights, just like a suffrage. They just want equal rights, like men to be able to vote. But then it's hijacked. And thank you for that story. I did not know that started that early in the 80s, that
Mhm.
infiltrated the
The
women's movement.
lesbian and gay movement, yes.
Yes. But I think it's everything to do with this toxic ideology, which is Marxist.
So how do you, most Americans, I think, I know I myself, when I started hearing a lot of these people saying, this isn't about capitalism, because I go along with that in 2018, when I got to see this article written by Jennifer Billick that was in the Federalist, which was a very conservative publication that I never
Yes.
would have looked at. I honestly don't even remember how I ended up seeing it, except somebody shared it with me and said, look, Joey, this is what for years, since the early 2000s, several of us were just wondering who was, there was something going on with financing this. And then Jennifer Billick had done the research, and there was that article. And before that, there wasn't anything that really answered how quickly something took over. And I went, of course, this is capitalism. And it even became Jennifer's line, if you will. It's capitalism, stupid, trying to
Yeah.
get people to realize that this was a bigger agenda. And then time goes on and we see these people saying, oh, this is Marxism. It's not capitalism. And I'm saying, well, I think it's a combination. So most Americans, I think, don't even know what Marxism is. As you say, we weren't taught about communism, and that's by design, I believe, as
Yes. Yeah.
well. But we're
Mhm.
not taught really. You have to want to go into political studies in order to even understand the differences. And I would love you to share with me, to help educate my audience, to help anybody that's
Mhm.
seeing this, myself. You use Marxism, communism. And of course, here we are in America, and it's an economic system of capitalism, but capitalism does drive a culture. It
Mhm.
drives things. Can you explain to me how those intersect, and how they're different, and why do
I
you
know.
use Marxism, communism, and yes,
I,
please.
actually, I'm not a scholar. I am not a historian. I was indoctrinated all these ideas by the CCP.
Mhm.
So my understanding of communism and Marxism is based on the teaching by the CCP. So Marxism is the theoretical foundation,
Mhm.
and so it provides really the theory. And because Marxist was Karl Marx never was a political leader of any movement. He was really just a theorist.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
that was what he provided, a foundation of theory for for really communism.
Mhm.
And so the first one that successfully realized his theory is Lenin. And then Leninism is one version. It's really hardcore, violent revolution, overthrowing a government. And then Maoism, it's all, but all of them are variations, and they are communism. Okay, what is difference between Marxism, socialism, and communism? Marxism, as I said, it's a theory. It's the theoretical foundation. And socialism, we were taught, is the initial stage of communism. So China does not call itself communist country. And Korea, North Korea and Cuba, they don't call themselves a communist country. They call themselves socialist country. Why? According to the theory, we cannot achieve communism in a single country. We have to achieve communism when all countries in the world become socialist country. So you can see that is a really communism is globalism. Their goal is not just have some kind of a social program in their own country. No. They want everybody to become a socialist country. So China is a socialist country ruled by a communist party. And that's very important for people to understand. Communism is a really political ideology. And so socialism is the way leads to communism. I hope that makes sense.
Yes. And then what do you think of this whole notion of how capitalism here in America intersects with this idea that we have a Maoist, communism coming in with these American characteristics?
Thank you. Yes, that's important, because if you read Communist Manifesto, and it's written by Karl Marx and his partner, Friedrich Engels. So they made it very clear. The whole goal of communism is to overthrow capitalism. And of course, capitalism is the term coined by Karl Marx, and we stuck with it. And it has a lot of negative connotation. You think about capital, you think about money, and then you think about exploitation, whatever. But capitalism is really free market economy. So the goal of communism is to overthrow capitalism. Why they hate capitalism so much? And what makes capitalism capitalism? There are several things. One is the protection of the private property. You can keep the fruit of your labor, and that is freedom. So Communist Manifesto, they said they want to abolish private property. They want to abolish religion. They want to abolish family. Why? Because all these are problems. These are problems of self-governing people. These are problems with freedoms. So that is their goal. So Karl Marx said, how do we do that? He said the workers, the proletariat, they will, after being exploited by the capitalists, they will rise up. They will fight and violently overthrow the government. But that did not happen because the only place that the communism revolution succeeded were in not industrial countries like Russia and China. It never happened in countries like Germany, UK, and France. Why? Because capitalism created wealth and created middle class, and people were happy. People did not want to join, the revolution, the bloody revolution, to overthrow a system that they benefited from. So that's why they have to use another form of Marxism, cultural Marxism. Cultural Marxism is what we're really going through right now. And it's to really capture the institutions, capture the culture, overthrow the dominant culture, which is Christian and Christian culture. When I say culture, it's not a religion, but Christian culture, because that's what our country is funded on. So that is what's going on. And the goal is to overthrow our free market economy and the system, along with its rule of laws, constitution, and everything that make America, make West as it is now free. The freedom, take away our freedom. Why do you want to take away our freedom? You say, if you want power, freedom is in the way. So all this, absolutely, when you understand it, it's all about power. And Mao did that in China. The Cultural Revolution is about taking over power, make it absolute. And what's going on here is the same, taking over our system so that they can have permanent power. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that the American public got a shock in 2020.
Yes.
When everybody kept focusing on, and of course it was Trump that kept using the word China and Chinese, and they were saying, oh, you're being racist, and all about the pandemic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There were a big swath of people that started waking up and saying, wait a minute, this seems to be about control. I mean, all the stuff about the masks and everything. And I know personally that a number of people who had not listened to me about what was going on at these so-called gender clinics that started popping up all over the country, the idea that, you know, the old saying, you repeat something enough, a lie, and it becomes the truth, and people don't question, and then critical thinking goes away. And here in our own institutions and education, debate is something that people hardly ever do anymore. So, of course, it started to get squished out of options actually at the universities. It's high schools. It used to be a typical high school thing. You could start in the best elementary schools and junior high schools here. They had debate teams and things like that. And I noticed that that was going away. And I thought, well, why is that going away? And one little chip with the next, so that by the time 2020 came, and I was not one of those people that immediately, I was afraid, but I thought there's something else going on. And when I saw all these people talking about and watching what went on in the news, that we could see what they were doing in China, what they were doing in Australia, that hit me hard to see that. And actually, because of the way that we can communicate immediately like this in a Zoom, or, you know, see things on X or whatever, it was like, this is what all this, it's never been about gender. It's never been about one specific thing. But what happened is that a number of feminists like myself started focusing and looking at, wait a minute, they're getting the erasure of women going on. So here's another control issue again, the language.
That's the key word, control.
About the language. So language creates and controls culture. As you said, trying to get things changed, like using words. It was a great example you gave. I want to tell you because I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and this area prides itself in the rights of disability activism and getting correct language and things like, as you said, it was so funny. You're not supposed to say blind anymore. You're supposed to say visually impaired. And that became, these phrases started to replace all of this stuff. And if I remember correctly, didn't you say that even Stanford now is saying the correct word is blind?
That's the cycle. That all this time, they have changed so many times. So you can see, do they give a damn what we call it? No. It is control our speech. Now back to blind. Yes. After all that, the first is visually impaired, and then something. I can't even remember. We have to obey. We have to comply. We have to use their vocabulary. And now back to the beginning. So you can see they don't care about blind or whatever. The goal is control. That is the word, control, or white control that is really about power. So, you know, feminism has been hijacked in the second wave in the 70s. That become a Marxist movement. You look at their literature, they call women proletarian. That is Marxist terminology. And the marriage is slavery. And so patriarchy is the capitalist system to oppress women. Everything turned into Marxist because Marxists hijacked it. So what become the enemy? Man become the enemy. Enemy number one. Men were evil. And then children become the enemy because children were the instrument to oppress women. So marriage is bad, family is bad, and then the feminists in the second wave created what we had today as transgender because they say gender is a social construct. We're all born the same, but we give girls dolls to play. We shape them, we influence them so they become feminine. And then we give boys trucks and guns, whatever. So they are the one that started this gender idea. Yes.
Well, hold on now. So here's the thing is that gender as a social construct was designed before second wave feminists. I am of that generation. I think that you have something about that a little bit off because there were a number of us that said gender is something that is made up. It's a social construct. Boys are supposed to do this. Girls are supposed to do that. All the people that I knew, all the women that I knew, we wanted to free that up and say, if you have a boy that wants to play with a doll, that's okay. If you have a girl that wants to play with trucks, that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
We actually had a more idea of a gender neutrality in that way for access to careers, to ideas, to building things. And it wasn't until that second wave started to have their children, and that was the third wave of the girls that came from second wave feminists. That's where all of a sudden inclusion happened. That word inclusion became very important. And that's my experience with that. It's not that the second generation, although what I agree with you about is I definitely saw all those terms and things that you're saying about Marxism started to get into the universities and stuff. I was going to different college classes and I questioned certain things about that. But in general, most of the things out of the second wave feminism, we were questioning everything. And we were looking at that. And it freed women up who had had mothers from the 1950s that were still stuck in this idea that women had to be this way and men had to be this way.
Yes.
And we wanted to break that free. So, I don't agree that it was the second waivers that created this. This
I think you're right. Yeah. I think what they are doing is they really mixed gender with sex. What they are trying to do, not like what the original movement. I can talk about other movement. They all have very good intention. A lot of it is freedom and equality. So what men can do, women can do too, if you choose to. If you choose to, right? That is what you're old-fashioned, the feminist. That's what you want. But they hijacked it. They mixed. They replaced gender. They replaced sex with gender.
We did not. We did not.
They did.
The third wave did.
Yes, they did.
The third wave by inclusion.
Yeah, that's why we have this transgender, because they paved the way. But from there, you can see, and Marxists, communists, they hijacked every movement. Look at the climate. Really, the religion become a religion. How it started. I remember. I came here in the 80s. We'll talk about Earth Day. Talk about recycling. I'm on board. I'm still on board. I recycle every piece. I love this earth we have. I love it. more so, I think, than so-called leftist, and then what? Then it was hijacked, and now it progressed to what's today, that we human become the pollutants. We are the problem. So what they're asking really is that we should be getting rid of.
You have to pay taxes, right, on your cows.
Not only that,
on your cows that are farting.
No.
It's your fault as a
but
farmer.
Also population control. They said we only need like a 10% of the total population. So they're really going to the direction of genocide. And that's how every movement, you look at every movement, they got involved. LGBT, that was the movement. What they want. They want equality. And now what happened? LGBT, out of this thing, that's all right now hijacked by transgenderism, but that's not it, because transgender, they still believe in gender, right? It's men want to be women, women want to be men. Now it's replaced by something even more bizarre, non-binary. They don't even admit there's such a thing as gender or sex. That's how far they go. And eventually, and everyone is a victim, because it's not about you. It's not about lesbians, gays, trans, or whatever. It's about overthrow the system and control everyone, control those who become a victim because they become relying on the medical treatment for the rest of their life, and control those who dare even to challenge it. It's control.
There's something that I think I know that we didn't get to talk about when I met you a few months ago. Prior to my meeting you last June in 2023, the film Affirmation Generation, which got obtained by a distributor, and the title was changed to No Way Back. And that film, No Way Back, the distributor got it into the AMC theaters. You realize? AMC theaters across the country. We had 60 movie theaters that were going to show that film on 2 different days, 3 times. Right before, and people were buying tickets and everything. I saw the stuff online. We were so excited about it. And just a few days before the first day that it was going to screen, AMC shut it down. They didn't say anything except there was a scheduling conflict or something. That's all they would admit to. I looked into that and went, wait a minute. I thought at the time that AMC Theaters was the largest in America, the largest movie theater chain, because that whole industry has suffered greatly since the lockdown. I found out that they were not just the largest in the United States, the largest in North America, which meant Canada as well. And then guess what, it's the largest in the world movie theater chain. And guess who owns that movie theater chain? China.
Wow.
So that had to be the final, I do not know, but they had to be the final deciders of that film getting pulled. And I thought, okay, why would they want a film pulled? Because they show other documentaries that are about, child trafficking. That was there was a big famous movie last year that came out as well. And it's because, for me, it creates a chaos. They don't want people to know about the dangers of these surgeries and creating lifelong medical patients, because it creates more chaos within the country to have wounded people, wounded children, wounded youth who will continue to need a medical system in order to stay alive and to be able to just survive. So what do you think about that theory?
Absolutely. China has been funding the transgender movement because China has absolutely enjoying that. China, I would say CCP or Xi Jinping. Yeah, because I try to distinguish the two, China and CCP. They have been enjoying the downfall of America. And one of the strongest movement going on is transgender. And this come back to the question. And people ask, okay, you call this communist, you call this Marxist. Why Xi Jinping is not pushing transgender? And so here is the answer, and this is very important to know.
Mhm.
Okay, I lived through the Cultural Revolution, and the Cultural Revolution is pretty much what's going on today. It is we have American Cultural Revolution. Why Mao started this Cultural Revolution, and I said a little bit earlier already, it's for power. He felt like he was losing power, he was losing control of his own party, so he was willing to drag the whole country into the turmoil that lasted 10 years and cost 20 million lives. Why? Because he won power. Okay, so the Red Guard and all that. So why it's not happening in China today? And that is very important to understand. Mao wanted to get power. Look at Xi Jinping. He has power. He has total control of the CCP. He has total control of China. Does he want turmoil? Does he want chaos? No, he doesn't. His slogan today is, let's build a harmonious society. Let's all be happy. If you show you're not happy, you will disappear. We want, he did not want to use TikTok to sexualize the Chinese kids. He want them to study, he indoctrinate them, but he want them to study to become his work bee for his empire. That's why he wanted to fund anything in America that will create chaos. He indirectly funded BMM too. Anything that his ambition is become the ruler of the world, and
Well, they've
why
taken
do it
over
himself?
Hollywood. They've taken over
Yeah,
Hollywood, you know.
I know. Why do it to himself? Let the communists do it within, and that is why absolutely everything that is create chaos, create a problem with America. You can always find the CCP behind it. Absolutely. Why not? Right? Why not? Yeah,
Yeah.
because we are doing, not we. I mean, the American Marxists are doing his bidding.
You know, one of the things that was so notable about you saying that for you, I think, again, you were 6 years old, I believe, when you said you were going to school.
7.
You were 7.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, of course, for a 7-year-old, but looking back, you probably still feel the same way. Like it seemed like it was overnight. It was overnight,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I thought this whole thing about the inclusion and the queer and the this and the that was going on, and the changes with women being erased and children also living in the state of California. Here's another very important thing, She, is that we have a governor, we've got senator that is pushing for the removal of the age of consent. Now, what does that lead to? So again, we get into chaos where boundaries between adults and children having sex is it's like it's being eliminated. The men in the women's prisons, again, fear, control, over the over women. And one of the things that because you've been in the States for over 3 decades now, and I know you're also on the East Coast, I'm on the West Coast, we come from different social backgrounds and things like that here in the States. But when I mentioned about the Federalist article that was published of Jennifer Billick's when she wrote, who are the rich white men behind, the transgender movement and stuff. Prior to that article, and a few of us, a handful of us wondering why this T became the Trojan horse that was pushing through the LGBT and had hijacked, as you said, everything. These things about looking at the signs of things like the big murals that we talked about. And I told you that during the whole BLM and 2020 and George Floyd here in Oakland, California, and I shared with you that image. In 2016, I saw a series, the podcaster Benjamin Boyce. He was still, I think, or he had just come from Evergreen College. And I wondered if you had ever seen the series from Evergreen. And that's where I saw, and I went, these are students that are literally taking over a professor trying to do that whole one word thing, right? Where you call somebody racist and the whole
Mm,
conversation gets shut down. All you
mhm,
have to do is say
yeah.
one word, right? And everybody's like, ah.
That's
And
Cultural Revolution.
and there we go. And I wondered
Yeah.
if you saw that, and you saw the Evergreen thing. So that was around
Yes.
2016 that was released. Did you
Mm.
think then, oh, this looks like the Cultural Revolution?
It is the struggle session, and I said, and I did say that in my book. And luckily, that Professor Weinstein was able to make out alive. He won't be able to do that in China. I tweeted the opening scene of a Three Body Problem, a Netflix original, and it was a scene of struggle session where the professor was arguing
Mm.
with the guards and he was beaten to death on the stage. And I hope people can check it out or even
I
either
just
watch
got
that.
recommended before we sat to do this together. Somebody
Oh,
wrote me and said, "Have you seen this?" I hadn't heard anything, so
yeah, yeah.
it's definitely on my list.
That is absolutely what happened in the Cultural Revolution. The professors, some of them beaten to death, and but definitely those there to argue. So I said, it's in the next step. It's absolutely the next step,
So
and
wasn't
it's here.
also wasn't also Riley Gaines at San
Yes,
Francisco State? Did you think then and go, here it is again?
yes, and how just a few days ago they were after Kyle Rittenhouse in
Again?
University of Memphis. My God, that same is Cultural Revolution. If the police were not there, do you think they were? They won't. I think they were very likely to kill Kyle Rittenhouse if all the mob got
Mm-hmm.
hold of him,
Mm-hmm.
lay their hands on him,
Mm-hmm.
and he will hardly had a chance to make it out live. It's
Yeah.
here, people. It's here. The Cultural Revolution is here, and all this movement we talk about inclusion. We talk about diversity. Do they really care about minorities? So Black Lives Matter. Do they care about Black lives? They do not. You never hear them defending or protest against the victims that died in the hands of other Black criminals. They don't. They don't care. Do they care about Asians? They accuse Trump as racist, called China virus. So they said that he is racist. They're going to defend the Asian community. Do they defend it when all the Chinese suffering from the crimes, in cities like New York City were pushed to the a rail in subway? No, you don't hear it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. They don't care of LGBTQ. Or they don't care black, white, no, black, brown, whatever. They don't care any of those.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things were just tactics for them to control us.
Did you see the documentary, and it's on YouTube, called The Fall of Minneapolis?
Yes, yes,
So there we go. And another thing that you brought up about the defund the police, that
yes,
it's so important they're doing that. So here in
yeah,
California, for a while, Los Angeles had a whole catch and release. They decided to
yeah,
do catch and release with
yeah.
criminals, and then they saw what happened with that. Here in the
Mm,
Bay Area, the same thing in Oakland. I mean, there are crimes every day that are just crazy that have
yeah,
not happened before. And they're all of a sudden saying, oh, we're going to fix this now. All of us, how did they fix it? They're starting to bring more police in by,
yeah.
shutting
You know,
things down. But it
no,
it answered exactly what you were saying about it's very important. And when I saw the fall of Minneapolis, which by the way is all around what really happened around the George Floyd thing in Minneapolis, and to hear those police talk about the step by step of the erosion of any control. And I went, there it is again. They want chaos. They want people
they
to
want
kill
chaos. Yeah.
each other. They
Mm-hmm.
literally want people to kill each other. And
Absolutely.
what are we seeing at the border right now? And all of
Oh,
my
yes.
friends that are, in Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas,
Yes.
everybody is freaking out. And
Yeah.
until people see what's going on down there, which because of technology, we're able to see things pretty quickly. It's coming through social media. What do you think? What do you think, or what do you know that is happening like this with this idea of chaos that I'm talking about? Do you think I'm crazy that
Yes,
this is the design they want?
it's by design. Mao had a very famous saying. He said, "We need chaos in order to have a new order." He said, "We should have chaos every 7 to 8 years." And the Cultural Revolution was his attempt to create the chaos.
Mhm.
How do you create chaos? First of all, you have to get rid of the law enforcement, and that's what he did. And it's called dismantle the criminal justice system. Same thing as defund police, just a different slogan. So what he did is he used people. He really used mobs to dismantle the system. And the police were told that you were not allowed to go to campuses because that's where the initial violence took place, that professors get killed, but police were not allowed to go into campuses. And they were told if the Red Guards hit them, they're not allowed to hit back. But eventually, all the system was collapsed. The police were personnel, so they're all exiled. So that's how you can have chaos. There's no one there to keep the order, and that's what's going on in America. But something also very important for us to know. So during the COVID, they weed out a lot of good police officers because they refuse to take the vaccine. So that is one of their ways, only one of their ways to weed out the good ones.
To get rid of critical thinkers?
Yeah. So now they have now we see the police, they would not defend ordinary citizens. They would carry the order from their bosses to just do nothing and let chaos take over. And because whoever left are the ones that the regime wants, those who follow the order or those who never challenge them. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're today. We defend the blue, but today, look at what the blue are doing. Nothing. They're not doing anything to protect us. And now with the border wide open, we get more criminals into our country, especially into our city, create more chaos. Only when you have chaos, you can build a new order, destroy everything, burn everything down, build back better.
Well, one of the things that I know you've been asked a million times, I'm not going to really ask you this, but it's that thing of, well, we all know that people need to be woken up, period. The more that we talk out, the more like you showing up when you said for culturally for you, for everything, to go to the school board meeting the first time you did with that clip that went viral, that 1-minute clip, right? The idea of somebody says, well, what do you think we need to do? Blah, blah, blah. Well, here again in California, a lot of people, it's not just we need to wake up the citizens, because once a lot of people wake up and they realize and they start connecting the dots again, like, why are all these children thinking they're the opposite sex, or why are they not thinking about sex at all? Because it's been replaced by gender and identity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this idea that, what are we going to actually do? Not just, wake up, because a lot of people do wake up and they get so overwhelmed, they shut down and they don't do anything. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to ask you, and I'm assuming that when you say, well, people need to wake up, well, okay, that means, for me, that means you start looking at helping to get and talk about and figure out what's going on politically in your own area. Get involved. Think about becoming a city council person. Get out and get signatures for initiatives like what's happening here with protectkidsca.com, Protect Kids, California. Getting active, not just staying complacent in the home, not just saying, well, I see what's going on, but I don't know what to do. So I know that you have been going to school board meetings and you're doing that. Obviously, you're talking out about this. You are waking people up. And thank you very much for this, because again, it's been a long time coming where people have needed to understand that this, like I said, this isn't about gender. This is all about control. And I needed to learn more because I wasn't immediately thinking with the pandemic, oh, this is about control, until I had worn a mask for a whole week. I went, oh yeah, this is about control.
It is, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't breathe, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so what would you say is the best way? Say that you've woken up a lot of people, then what would be the next step you would ask people to do if they've woken up, they see this is about control, this is everywhere,
Mhm.
that this is a takeover and chaos is the mission.
Yes.
So what kinds of things are you doing or you recommend that people do once they
Yeah, and
wake up?
yeah, it's a big question. Different people can do different things, but everything is local. That is so important. People say, I can't do anything. I can't stop them. You can do something. You can do at the lowest local level. You can go to school board. You can run for positions in this, like a city council or whatever. If you say, oh, I'm not, I don't think I'm the kind of people that can do that. Well, help people who are running, help people, and you have to do it locally, because no matter what, if we conservatives take over the White House, the Supreme Court, and the Congress, still the work needs to be done in the very low, the local level. To change the culture, we have to start below rather than from above.
Mm-hmm.
And so school board is one thing, especially in California. And also get involved when in the local organization. There's so many. There's a Republican committee, women's club, Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, and whatever. I know there's a lot of them. Identify one that you think that in line with you, support them. Those say, okay, I'm afraid of losing my job or whatever. Well, donate money, time, money, and also spread the message to the within your circle of influence. Yeah, and I happen to be able to have my voice heard in the larger scale, but everyone has a circle of influence.
Mm-hmm.
We have to act in the local level. So this is what I have to say. Loudoun County, where I'm from, start the parent revolve in 2021. That really started the whole parent movement in the country. But today, when I go to school board, the same people no longer show up, and so because it is tiresome. It is tiresome. This is not that one-time thing, and it took the communist decades to get where today. They don't sleep. Socialist, communists, they do not sleep. And we have to be prepared for it. It's not one day thing. It's not one season. It's going to go on for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to be prepared and participate, do anything you can. And a lot of people, I said, well, if you can't do anything, oh, my job, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
money,
Mm-hmm.
donate money and support the candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
Well,
just a,
one last question. I know you have someplace else to go.
mm,
What do you think now that your book is out and you worked on it so hard, and I'm so glad everybody encouraged you to write that. What is something you wish that you had included in the book that you weren't able to? After the book came out, here it is, the birthing of this thing. Is there
yeah.
something that you wish, looking back, that you wish you could have put in the book that maybe because of time constraints or whatever?
Actually, the publisher cut off 2 chapters because it's too long, and I think they did the right thing, because this is more an introduction. There's a lot more to tell, and I am planning to do podcast, and I'm building my website. I am planning to put more materials out there for people to see. People do not understand communism and the Cultural Revolution. Even after reading my book, that's only an introduction. I
Mhm.
have to do more of education. So I'm trying. Actually, I'm going to a meeting after this, a planning meeting, to come up with new ways to reach out to people. Nowadays, people don't want to read a book. They don't even. Someone told me, can you simplify the 45 minutes with Tucker into 5 minutes? I said, 45 minutes, I hardly scratched the surface. 5 minutes, you think 5 minutes, you understand it? but that's what people do. So I'm trying to come up with a plan to use kind of a short or digestible way information for people to understand this. This is very sad. We are really in crisis, and people read a book. It's just too much to ask.
Gee, it's not just about reading a book. It's interesting. So in the 1970s, I was teaching self-defense classes with another woman to women and girls, all ages. It was an 8-week class. So we've got, we've got 8 weeks and we're doing 3-hour sessions. And what happened with our class was so successful. The police department infiltrated our class. They loved what we were doing. They approached us and said, we would like you to come work with our police department. This was the Multnomah County Police Department in Oregon. And we'd like you to come and work with us, but we don't want to take all that time. We want to make sure that we have it be a one-day workshop. And we said, no, we're not interested, because it takes time to replace all of these thoughts, like you were saying about how you were taught an incorrect, crazy, rewritten narrative of history and all the statues down and everything, you have to relearn and still have to go back. And we refused. And what did they do then? They just stayed, the cops that were infiltrating our class, they went through the whole thing. They turned it into a 4-hour workshop. And what we said was so important about that, why it's so bad, is women are already in a position to be raised to be nice and kind and trust your neighbor and that nice man across the street, and all this stuff, that if they do get attacked and they are not successful in that staving off of that situation, they blame themselves worse, because then they feel like I caused it. And it takes longer. And that's why we said it takes 8 weeks at least to try to get women to just get confidence. That's the first self-defense. Is confidence. So I relate to so much of what you say about growing up, from being a little girl, seeing the stuff like overnight, the propaganda was off the charts, and that you went without school. At first they told you 3 days, and then it became 2 years.
2 years.
So, kudos to you. And I mean, the miracle that you even made it to the United States, and with the help of the woman that you said, is she still around? I wanted to ask you.
No, she passed away. I really, I make sure I include her name, and she did not know. I did not know, but she was the one brought me here to fight against communism.
Well, thank you so much for your writings. I'm going to be putting links into everything. I think that, you're doing, as Jewish people would say, a mitzvah, even though neither of us are Jewish. But the idea of you sticking your neck out the way that you are it's huge. And I think it's going to be years before people realize, again, the few of us that insisted on going against the grain. And it's not popular to do. And I thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Thank you.
Talk again soon. Okay.
Bye.